across the podcast where we rank our quarterbacks from 32 to 1. We've had 32 to 20 or 21. We're now moving on to 20 all the way to number 1. So 20 for you, Sam. Who's it going to be?
My number 20 is Brock Purdy. Um, Obviously, he's a man who replaced Jimmy Garoppolo, who's number 21, after his injury last year, and then stole the starting job from not only him, but also likely Trey Lance as well, heading into the 2023 season. He looked just as good as Jimmy Garoppolo did in that team as a rookie. And I don't think he can be much more than that. I just think he was perfect for the system. He could be. I just yeah, for me. He's probably just another Shanahan QB who does the same thing. He doesn't have anything special. I think Trey Lance could have something special, but I don't think he's the composed guy in the pocket who can distribute the ball. That obviously Purdy, Garoppolo, Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, basically anyone who's played quarterback for the Niners, um, is. So, yeah, for me, Purdy, I think that they are talking about him being ready for the start of the season. That's my only thing. And if he's not ready, there's a lot of talk about Sam Darnold starting for the Niners, instead of Trey Lance. So it sort of does say what they think about him, doesn't it? Really, but yeah, Purdy just ahead of Garoppolo for me.
I've got Purdy as well, and I think you're bang on right. I think for me, if you're looking at what he did in those few games, he was brilliant, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But it's a very small sample size. Now, I mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo. Remember his first 5 games in the 49ers when he came in mid-season, was unbeaten, and I think they gave him a new deal. Did they give him a new deal that summer, or they gave him a huge deal when he first came through? He had a great start to life for the 49ers, big expectations, gets injured the first game of the next year, or second game
Yeah.
of next year, whatever it was, and he's been there for years. He's been a solid figure, but he's had constant injuries. And I think that Brock Purdy, again, a bit like what we talked about with other quarterbacks, like Gino, for example, you got to be careful after a few games. I think the 49ers know more than else not to get your hopes up after a few games. So I think Brock Purdy, if he's anything like he was last year, I think he'll be a top 10 quarterback in the next 5 years. But at the same time, we cannot base how good he is based on what 5, 6, 7 games where really it was great coaching. So I think Purdy had a very good time last year, but I think he's got to be careful. But of course, for me, this is the most interesting off-season story for me. And the most interesting narrative going into the season is what happened to quarterback because they gave up a lot of draft picks to get Trey Lance. Was it 3 firsts? He's been.
Yeah.
I think he has to take his chance. If he gets a chance to start, if Purdy isn't fit, Trey Lance he has to perform. If he doesn't perform, that will be it. I can't see him being trusted again if he's got injured for the second year in a row, third year in a row. I think he has to perform now, and I think that this is why Sam Donald for me is a comeback player of the year dark horse. I think if
Mm.
Mark Hamlin plays, he wins it automatically. I think that's a guarantee. I think 2 isn't with a shout, but I think with Sam Darnold, if Purdy's injured, Trey Lance doesn't make most of his chance. They've always talked about him being the best thrower they've ever had in the team, which I think is a crazy statement. But I can't think who even made that statement. Was this Steve Marriott? I can't think who it was now. Someone made the statement that he was the best both talented thrower they've ever seen in the 49ers. And I think that
Wow.
he's proven he's not been, I don't think he's been awful. I don't think he's been great. So I think that if you put him into a system where it's great coaching, like, for example, he went from Todd Bowles to Matt Rule in his career. So I think that if you can put him with Kyle Shanahan, I think that if he's got any chance of realizing his potential, now's that chance. And I think that if Purdy isn't fit, Lance isn't doing it in trading or something, and Darnold comes in, I think we could see Sam Darnold really have a resurgence. But I think
That's why he's there. That's
yeah,
why he's in San
exactly,
Francisco.
exactly. I think that he's not had many injury things apart from the mono thing. I don't think he's had too many injuries, so I think that he might be actually the quarterback that they need after so many injury-prone quarterbacks. But I think if Purdy's fit, he plays. If I'm honest, but I think Trey Lance, they'll want to at least give him a go because they gave all that draft capital for him. And if they want to trade him, they have to have some sort of trade value back for him. But I think that's a really interesting off-season story. So yeah, do you think Purdy starts week 1 as well? Then, judging by you picking Purdy, you also think he'll start week 1?
Yeah, I do. And it's just because if it ain't broke, why fix? Why change it? Like you got he. again, that Niners offense up until the NFC Championship game, with obviously the elbow and everything, uh, you know, because that's why they weren't producing as much. But that offense was just so fun to watch, and not only because of how many weapons they had and how entertaining it was, but also because of how they schemed up and how they did it. And obviously, Kyle Shanahan, genius, like you're saying. If he feels like Brock Purdy will give him the best chance to win, then he'll play Brock Purdy. And I think right now he probably does do that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what Shanahan loves, there's a reason why he tried to get Kirk Cousins all those years ago. He had Matt Ryan in Atlanta. I think he loves pocket pocket passes. I don't think he cares that
Yeah,
much with mobile quarterbacks. I think that's why. I mean, Trey Lance has got the cannon arm, and he's got an arm, judging by his college tape alone, like Mahomes. But I think if you got someone like Purdy who does a job like he does, that's why Garoppolo got so many chances because he likes those kind of quarterbacks. And I think that, I think he does like Purdy. And it's just Tom Brady was 199th overall. Drew Bledsoe was, I believe, a first overall pick, and Belichick went for Brady. So I think sometimes if you like your guy, where they got drafted doesn't really matter to people. So yeah, I think to the head coaches. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting offseason for the 49ers, and I'm really intrigued how it's going to go this year. Number 19, I've gone for Derek Carr. Of course, moved this offseason from the Raiders to the New Orleans Saints. I've been high on Carr in the past, but I don't know whether he is going to perform in the Saints. I think that he's got Chris Olave, yes, and Michael Thomas. If Michael Thomas gets back to what he is, but what we saw from Carr last year, I mean, 24 touchdowns, 14 picks doesn't sound too bad, but if I'm honest, it wasn't a great watch, and I do worry for Carr that. I think also I'm not a fan of Dennis Allen as a head coach. So
mm.
I think he's not gone to a great coaching system. But yeah, I don't think I can put him too much higher because I don't think I've seen enough these last year. I mean, a year ago he was a lot higher in my list. He's a guy that took the Raiders to the playoffs, but I just don't. I think he's taken a massive nosedive, and I do question why they moved off from Carr to get Garoppolo, basically a carbon copy quarterback in Garoppolo the Raiders. So I do question the Raiders. I would have kept them at the Raiders if I was them. I'd rather have him than Garoppolo, as obviously seen as my list. But yeah, I don't know whether Carr is going to be the guy to make the Saints playoff contenders again. Sam, for you, who's your number 19?
My number 19 is Dak Prescott.
Whoa,
Um,
whoa, 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 whoa! We have our second shocker of the episode. That is quite the
is
bombshell.
it? I don't think it is. I
Or
really don't.
I think he's much better than you're giving credit for. I mean, he's not
Uh,
in my top 10, but he's certainly a guy. I think that he had a bad year last year, granted, but I don't think you can put him 19. I think there's way worse callbacks than that in this list.
well, I must not be a fan then. He's coming off a tough year. Obviously, he led the league in interceptions last year. And the pressure is starting to mount now with him on that contract. When has he really actually done anything when he's always had a top 10 roster? And that's the thing, right? You know, there's Dallas kind of stuck here because they I've heard rumors about the contract. That obviously it's starting to get a bit of conversation now because obviously Dak's not really improved. He's just been the same guy he has been since 2016. Really, there's not a potential out here for Dallas until the end of 2024. But even then, there's a 61 million dead cap if they cut him. So they're kind of stuck here. He's always had the pieces around him, but he's not achieved anything. As I said, top 10 roster, pretty much every single year. He's had a decent offensive line as well. It's not like the Cowboys, been rocking out the Brian Flores Miami Dolphins offensive line. Like he's had a decent offensive line, and he's always had a couple receivers with him as well. He's a solid player, but he's just nothing special. And I mean, put it this way, right? NFC, it's easier to win games, uh, but for me, he's the third QB in the NFC East. Um, and I may as well do number 18 as well. I got Daniel Jones at number 18. I think Daniel Jones is a better QB than Dak Prescott. Um, they're quite similar actually, but what Daniel Jones does have is he's got his legs. His legs are a superpower. It keeps him quite high up on this list. Obviously, Brian Dable came in and really helped him improve as a passer last year as well. But Daniel Jones and Dak aren't very dissimilar, and for me, Daniel Jones has got the ability that he can gain a first down with his legs and actually be quite hard to bring down as well when Dak hasn't got that. But for me, yeah, my shocker maybe if that's what everyone else thinks is Dak Prescott number 19, but I haven't really ever rated him.
I mean, that certainly is a shocker. I mean, I'm actually no, I'm not even a Dak fan. I do think he is not a big game player. I think that for me, he's a little bit like a Romelu Lukaku in terms of he has all his talent, but I've never seen Lukaku do it in a big game. That in
Mm.
terms of, I've never seen do it in a final, never seen do it in an international tournament really that much. And I think for Dak Prescott again, yeah, I think I think he's been good, but I don't think he's been great. I mean, I wouldn't put him 19, but I mean, I think I think they are stuck because you look at this as well that their team is far too good to not to get a low round pick unless they trade up to get them, they give away future picks or something. But the team they got right now is not going to be a top 10 pick in the draft. Defense alone, you got Diggs, Van Der Esch, Micah Parsons. They just drafted Maisie Smith. They got DeMarcus Lawrence, and then look at the offense. Tony Pollard, C.D. Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Gallup. Zach Martin in the O line. It's a good team, and I
This is
think
my thing. Yeah, they'll win 10, 11 games. They'll get knocked out the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. That's exactly what I mean. If they had a quarterback who could take them over the edge, they could achieve a lot more. But Dak Prescott just isn't that. Like
you think as
that's
well
what
as
it
that the
is.
coaching because he's had Jason Garrett and Mike McCarthy. I mean, if you
Yeah,
even
yeah.
Shanahan or if Sean Payton had gone to Dallas like he almost did ahead of McCarthy, I think Dallas would have made at least one NFC Championship game, and I think they could have even made it. Especially 2020, I think they could have made it all the way. Not 2020, 2020, whatever year it was, where I think maybe even last season, I think they'd have gone a lot further if they had Sean Payton in charge. I think he's been unlucky
Oh
with
yeah.
everything. I don't rate Kellen Moore whatsoever, and I do
He's
think
gone to the Chargers now.
yeah, and I think they're going to struggle because I think he maybe an upgrade on their last guy, but I don't think he's anything special. And I think that for me, that's been Dak's problem as much as that. But of course, the main problem for Dallas, I think, will always be as long as he's there, is Jerry Jones. I do think that look, they'll never win a championship with him there. I think he holds the team back way too much. He meddles too much. I mean, you obviously we moan to some owners who don't give a toss. Like Stan Kroenke gets a lot of stick from Arsenal fans for not being at games. Jerry Jones is at every game. You've got to give him credit for that. But at the same time, he meddles far too much. He fired Jimmy Johnson when he shouldn't have. He's got all this bad, and I think he is a problem. I met a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans last year when I was in Seattle, and they all hate Jerry Jones. And I think that
Wow,
I actually like Jones. I like his personality, but I think he is really holding the team back. I think far too much now.
it's interesting. Who have you got up next?
So my 18 is Daniel Jones. So
Yeah, okay, same.
it's our second lot of that's our third lot now. Yeah, our third lot of positions where we've got the same person. Daniel Jones, I think that me, I don't like his new contract at all. I don't like the fact that he gave him so much. I mean, he's earning now, what's it, $40 million per year, which is insane. And I don't think he quite earned enough. I mean, looking at his stats alone from last year, I mean, he had 15 touchdowns. So it's not the best sort of numbers from him. I think that Brian Dable, like we saw with Josh Allen, he's made Daniel Jones look a lot better than he actually is, and I think that I would personally give money to Saquon over Daniel Jones. I would have franchise tagged Jones and given money to Saquon, but I think this year, I hope he may do it again. You never know, but I do question whether he is going to be someone who can live it up to what he did last season.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I mean, I actually had a look at his season last year. I went on the PFF like advanced stats and stuff like that, and really, he actually didn't improve that much as a passer. He just got a lot more conservative and learned how to sort of well, maybe probably like read a defense and become more one in the pocket because he didn't get sacked as much and that kind of thing. But for me as well, it was just more him actually like his leg. Like I said, his legs for me make him or why I think he's better than some other quarterbacks like Dak Prescott, Matt Jones. But they're all in a very similar mold where they haven't got special arm talent and they're just there. Like, they're just the average quarterback. But no, I see exactly what you mean there. My number 17 is someone you mentioned before, Derek Carr. A year ago, he would have been a bit higher, like you were saying as well. And I've always been a fan, been a bigger fan of him than many other people as well. But last year wasn't great. He was way more aggressive, but his so his average depth of target went up, but his big time throws almost halved. So actually, when it talks about on the money, great throws to push your team down the field, his impact halved. Which I mean that's a lot. I think it went from about 39 to 21. So he was one of the highest in the league last year to one of the lowest, and mid-table in the league this year just gone. His completion percentage went from 68% to 60% as well, so it's gone down quite a bit. And obviously, it's a big year for his future because he has a chance to get back to form with the Saints. Obviously, a probably better on organization than the Raiders because they're just a mess. I think many people have that opinion. But I mean, like I said, the division is between the Saints and the Panthers, unless the Bucks and the Falcons were a surprise. And he's got a chance to lead the team to the playoffs. And to be honest with you as well, with the NFC, I can see him winning a playoff game too. That's just the unique ability of it, really. But for me, Derek Carr, number 17.
See, I think the Saints are going nowhere near the playoffs. I mean, Derek Carr, I
Wow.
think, I just don't think. Firstly, he's enough to improve him, but I think that they might miss out of Alvin Kamara for a few weeks if the ban does happen, and I think that's going to be a big miss. And I think that they may well get someone else in who may do a good job, but I just don't think there's enough there. I mean, yes, Olaf had a good rookie, and I think that he will get better numbers under Derek Carr as opposed to Andy Dalton. But I think apart from that, Michael Thomas has not been really the same for years now, and I just don't think they got enough on defense for me. Obviously, Cam Jordan, obviously, is one of my favorite players in that position. I think he's brilliant, but I just don't think they got enough. And I think that division will have one team. I don't think there'll be anyone more than just one team, and I think it'll be just one team progresses to the playoffs in that division. And I think it's between the Panthers and the Falcons for me. And I don't think the Saints are anywhere
Do you
near.
see the Falcons getting in the
Yeah,
playoffs?
I think
But even
that.
with Desmond Ridder,
Yeah, I think you mentioned before running. I think they're going to run the hell out of this
yeah,
team.
oh yeah, they will for
Bijan,
sure.
Algier, but I think adding Clay Campbell in, Jesse Bates. I think Jesse Bates is a
The
big one.
defense is a lot better.
Yeah, and
They added some pieces. To
yeah,
be fair,
and I think that Arthur Smith is actually not a bad head coach. So
no,
I think the Panthers will be good because they were good last year, just lacking a quarterback. And I think you get Bryce Young in. Whether he's going to have a great rookie year or not, I don't know. But I think they'll certainly be contending. Well, I think the Buccaneers, if Baker Mayfield can produce, he's got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I think there's a chance. I think that division will be actually quite exciting, but not for great play. I think it'll be very much like the winner goes in with like 9 wins or something or 8 wins, but it's very much
yeah,
so like last year. I think I think they'll all be on at least 7 wins. I don't think anyone's going to be on like
mm.
maybe 2 or 3 wins, but I think they'll all be around the 7 to 8 to 9 mark. Um, 17 for me. I've got Geno Smith. I like what I saw: 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, over 4,000 yards. But yeah, it's that question of he did more than Jones, Carr, Pickett, Jones, all for me last season. It's worth he does it again. But I think you got Pete Carroll there. For me, I think he's turned us so much from him being the problem in Seattle to it being Russell Wilson being the problem, and he's proved that that trade he made. I mean, that was probably one of the best trades I've seen in years. I mean, getting multiple first rounds for Russell Wilson and getting Geno Smith and everything in return he got. I think it's just a brilliant story. And I think Pete Carroll has really shown, and also getting Devin Witherspoon with that pick as well. I think they've done a really good job at that front office, and I think that Geno Smith will again he'll benefit from that this year. My number 16 is a player that I think will be in my top 10 in a year's time. Justin Fields. I think that we saw a massive upgrade, a massive improvement in last season alone. You give him DJ Moore, and I think that you personally get a much more. That's one thing he was lacking last year was a good receiver, and now he's got him to go alongside Chase Claypool and Darnell Mooney, who will do a lot better at number 2, number 3, rather than number 1 choice receiver. So you got DJ Moore there. I think this team, whilst I think they won't go far. I think they may make the playoffs, but they may not make the playoffs. I think their division is quite tough, but I think we'll see Fields take another step towards being a top 10 quarterback. And I think this time next year, if we do it again next year, this podcast, I can predict him being in my top 10. But for you, Sam, who's your 16?
My number 16 is Jared Goff. So number 16, the sort of prime meridian, the average uh, QB. Anyone above Jared Goff can be considered a franchise quarterback. Anyone below, you've got to worry about. As the Around the NFL podcast do every year, their Dalton scale. Um, yeah, he's coming off his second best season in his career. Obviously, the one where they went to the Super Bowl, the Rams was the number one. But he's got really good pocket presence. He's someone who can really sense a blitz and do something about it. And yeah, I mean, for me, he's the perfect bridge quarterback because he's a leader. He can do, most. He can function an offense to a level where it could probably get you a playoff berth or at least get you 9-10 wins. Because like I said, that Detroit roster is good, but it's not some of the others in the NFC. Um, and again, for me, like even if Detroit move on to Hendon Hooker down the line, a couple of years or whatever, I think it will still find a job somewhere else. Because this just stint in Detroit has really shown me that Jared Goff uh, is a great QB. And I could probably, yeah, there you go, great. I think it's good. And I don't think the Rams should have discarded him in the way they did, really. Um, but I really rate Jared Goff. Yeah, 16 for me. Honestly, anyone above here, I really like as quarterback. So that's high praise.
Yeah, I actually don't really hate the Goff trade because they got a ring from it. I think
True, true. Yeah,
long term they would have been better to stick with Goff. I think long term he'd have been better answered than Stafford. But I think Stafford will have a renaissance this year. I think he'll get back if he's healthy, which I don't. He wasn't at all really last year. I think he'll do better. But I think they can't. I don't think they can really moan too much because they got a ring out of it. I think if we lost that game, I think you could be thinking a different story. But I think the fact that they got a Super Bowl from Stafford, who called through the winning touchdown past the cup, I think I think is one of those win-win trades for everyone. Lions got a great quarterback in Jared Goff, and Rams get a ring with Stafford. So yeah, I think that's definitely one of the more recent examples of a trade where everyone won it. Now over to number 15. So back to you actually, Sam, for your number 15.
my number 15 is Tua.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, I think many people might have expected me to put him a bit higher on this list, but look, he's one of the hardest QBs to rank just because, like, what is he? Last season, he showed that he can be a top five quarterback when given help, and or when at least some sort of help compared to what he had under Brian Flores, where he was running for his life behind that offensive line, and he really only had Jalen Waddle across the middle of the field, and that's it. Um, for me, I think I love him as a quarterback. His the accuracy, the ball placement is so good, and that's something I look for. His movement as well, the way he throws is so fluid. But it's durability. I honestly, I'd put him in the top 10 if I was confident that he's going to survive another 3-4 seasons, but I'm not. Um, he actually avoided a body injury last year, so he didn't get hurt to say. He would have played all 16 games, but obviously the concussions, the three of them, the serious brain injuries, he had instead. So yeah, there are that. Yeah, that's right. There is that. But yeah, for me, again, like I said, anyone above here, I really like as a QB, and I think you can win a Super Bowl with personally. But yeah, it's just the health. If he comes out and balls next year, he'll be in the top 10 without a doubt. It's just, can you play 16 games? And that I don't believe so personally right now.
Yeah, that is the biggest question mark. I think that I think there's a lot of, I think we've answered a lot of our defensive worries by getting Vic Fangio in on defensive coordinator, getting in Jaden Ramsey, as well as drafting people like Cam Smith. But I think that is for me I think offensive line is one as well. But I think for me the biggest question by far in this whole off season for the Dolphins is Tua. And I think that we all saw last year when he was healthy, he was great. I mean, yeah, the odd game, but who has had a bad game each season? Everyone gets bad games, but you know most games where he was healthy, he was brilliant. I think that I think for me personally, he's definitely a comeback player, the candidate. I think he's gonna have a really good year. I think whether the jiu-jitsu lessons are that big a I don't know whether that'll actually help. If it may help, and I think he's definitely taken steps to try and solve that. I think as well, Mike Daniel surely has to learn to run the ball more. I think that's also the biggest issue is that we were going far too much pass heavy in terms of our constantly using the ball in the air, especially second half of games. I think that if we get Dalvin Cook or we stick with most A Kane and Jeff Wilson, if we just run the ball more, which we should have done more, there's games that we should have really ran the ball more. And I think that if we do that, that will really help to preserve Tua's health. I think that not having to constantly use it in the air, I think is a massive. It will be massive help to Tua, and I think this year Percy's can have a great year. I mean, I've been, a regular doubter of Tua, but I'm actually firmly on the other side now, and I think that he can become a good quarterback if he stays healthy. If he stays healthy, I think he's top 10 for me. But
I never thought I'd see the day.
I know I've been
After
such a
all the conversations we've had in this podcast over the last couple of years about Tua, I never thought. I mean, you could even have him higher than me, which I
yeah.
never thought I'd see a day. But yeah, the good thing to actually know about Tua as well is this year will be the first year we're going to see him with the same offensive play caller for 2 years in a row. He's not had that since high school. So this is the first time we're going to see Tua in a system that he actually knows, week one of the season. So that's something that I'm really excited for. And like I said as well, if I wasn't worried he might, potentially die on the field, which, there was some moments last year, then I really would think he'd be a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, yeah. I think time will tell. But I've definitely got him higher than 15th. But
Wow, honestly, I never thought I'd see the day you got him higher than me. But that's the thing as well. Other than my number 14, but 13 onwards, these guys are like my guys. So, so maybe that's just what it is. But no, I wanted to put him higher, but I thought let's be realistic, put him at number 15. Uh,
well, my 15 is a guy that I actually hate as a quarterback, but I think he's shown a lot more over his career than these other quarterbacks below have. Kyler Murray. I think that 14 touchdowns, 7 picks. Obviously, not as many games last year, and obviously he's missing a lot of next year as well. And I don't think he's going to be anything special. I think he's got to be careful as well because he came in. The Cardinals have proved they're not a team that won't shy away from making quick decisions, and we saw that with Josh after a year. Josh Rosen got traded away,
mm.
and Murray was brought in with the new implement of Kingsbury's new head coach. But now he's gone. Steve Keim, who drafted him, GM, he's gone, taking a break for health reasons. So you've got to be careful. And I think that he's got to be really careful this year because he's going to go into a team that may well go 0-6 if it's Colt McCoy for his first 6 games. He's going to come into this situation where they're likely to be certainly in the top three, and whether that's Michael May or whether that's Caleb Williams, the fans will be likely to want his name. And I think that Murray, he's now playing for a coach in name's Steve Stryker, I think his name is. I forgot his name now. No, John Gannon.
Shane. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I think I was going to say
Gannon.
Shane. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
all the
that's
Eagles ones. All the
yeah.
Eagles ones. Yeah.
So you come in with Jonathan Gannon.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't draft Kyler. It wasn't
No,
a
true.
massive thing, and he's got to be careful because he's going to come in. He's going to basically Gannon's coming into a team where Murray's likely not to even be training or not even be practicing. It's going to be Colt McCoy and whoever the backup is after Colt McCoy. And I think you get that situation where he's not used to having Murray in situation. Murray comes in mid-season, and I think it's a big worry for Murray because he is going to likely be in a team which finishes with the first, second, or third worst record in the league. Now, if they like him, they could trade down. You never know. But if Gannon falls in love with Caleb Williams and they get that first overall pick, and Caleb Williams will be first overall pick, unless a team with a good quarterback has a stinker of a year, it's going to be him in the one overall pick. And Kyler Murray, I think we're done. And I think that he'll get a starting spot somewhere else. Could be Washington, could be Denver, you never know, or could be anyone like that. But I think that he is really in danger of losing his job. And I think that whilst same as coaches and players, you get 3 chances as a starter or as a head coach. I think he'll get a chance somewhere else. But I think as a Cardinal, I do think this will be potentially his last year as a Cardinal. Do you see any way he stays, Sam?
Um, I can see it, especially if he plays, obviously there's gonna be Colt McCoy at the start of the season. If he plays more games than they'd expect him to, then yeah, I can see him staying because I expect he'll probably get more wins than needed for the number one overall pick. But that being said, this roster is terrible, so I don't know. But you're totally right with what you're saying there. They've got completely new organization in Arizona, new GM, new head coach, and Jonathan Gannon, like you were saying. Uh, he looks like the typical Madden head coach. I don't know if you've seen the memes going around, but he
No,
just
I've
looks
not
like
seen that. No.
he just looks like the generic Madden head coach. Um, yeah, yeah. And just whilst I was changing my lights, the color of my lights there, you were saying, obviously about Caleb Williams and that being a potential, and that is completely fair. Bear in mind they did the exact same thing to Josh Rosen, but Kyler Murray is better than Josh Rosen by quite some margin.
Hmm.
So whether that actually happens, I'm not sure. But yeah, no, yeah, I think it's fair. And I've got Kirk Cousins as my number 14, and then I got Kyler at 30. So I'll just go through Kirk Cousins now quickly before I go into Kyler. But he's very consistent, but is he actually great? It's kind of a thing where like, if Tua could stay healthy, I'd probably have Tua above Kirk Cousins. Um, but I mean, you got to say to his credit, he never gets injured. Like that is something that he's never really got injured at all. Again, the other thing as well is how good will he do in the AFC? That is another thing where it's like put him in the AFC. I don't think the Vikings will get in the playoffs personally, especially if they're in a stacked division like the East or the North. Um, but or the West. It's only really the South that you struggle to find playoff teams already. But he did have a down year in his first year of Kevin O'Connell, and he is a free agent this off season as well. So that long deal somehow that's gone like that is now expiring. Like what the hell? I remember that 30 million a year contract being groundbreaking at the time in free agency, but in 2018. But now that's done. He had a down year last year. Will the Vikings re-sign him? That there is that to be said. If they're good, then they probably will do because they're kind of stuck. They're like Dallas. They're too good to tank for a quarterback, and they're not good enough to win a Super Bowl at quarterback. It's a similar thing, and all these guys, probably 20 to 13, I'd say now with Kyler. They're all quite obviously Kyler's different, but 20 to 14 with Kirk Cousins, they're all quite similar. It's like again, two is my only one where I think he can be more than Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins kind of quarterback, but will he play enough when everybody else is Jimmy Garoppolo, Purdy's, Geno Smiths? You're like they're just solid quarterbacks. My number 13, like I said, Kyler Murray. Um, I love small mobile quarterbacks, so it's why I got him a bit higher than you. But again, what's he had around him in his time in Arizona? Really, like
Hopkins.
he's been coached by Cliff Kingsbury the
Hmm.
whole time. We've not seen him with anybody else as his head coach or offensive caller, player caller. He's been coached, but that there is something to be said in that. And also, I'm not being funny. The Cardinals are one of the least well run organizations in the league as well. Steve Keim got fired for a reason. Um, so I like I was saying earlier what you were saying earlier. I've got more faith in Kyler than you do. I honestly, if they draft Caleb Williams, and I hope Kyler goes somewhere with a good roster because I think he can be a top 10 quarterback with a good roster, maybe even top 5. I really rate his. I think he's quite good. Like I said, I love the Russell Wilson style quarterbacks. That's my mold of QB.
Oh yeah, for Murray, I think for me the whole contract thing is really just ruined his
Oh,
reputation. I
that
think
there
that
was that as well. Yeah,
yeah, I
the
think
whole Call of Duty thing, and yeah, that it does make sense. But I just got a little bit of hope that Kyler Murray can be what we thought he'd be when he got drafted number 1 overall.
well, I've just found. I don't know if you can see it. I found on Twitter the generic. Again, my lighting's not best, but
Yeah,
it does look a lot like Gannon, and yeah,
yeah,
yeah. For me, he looks like an accountant to me. If I saw him without knowing he was a coach, I would never ever say a sports coach. I would say accountant or lawyer or teacher.
yeah.
I would not. Or who's the guy from Practical Jokers? Is it Mur? I can't.
I'm not sure. I've never seen it,
Oh
but
well, there's what on that program. There's one that looks just like him.
oh really?
Yeah, it's I'll show you the pictures later on. Um, right before we head to another quick break, fifth, sorry, 14th for me is Russell Wilson. Um,
Okay.
guy that I've liked in the past, but the down year is concerning. Now, I do think part of that is Nate Hackett, but I do think Sean Payton, I think, could guide this team to the playoff. I think Russell Wilson could have bounced back year, but of course, it's not Sean Payton's guy like Drew Brees was. You don't know how it's going to work out. So
Mm.
Russell Wilson for me is concerning. 16 picks, sorry, 16 touchdowns, 11 picks, just 3,500 yards for a guy that gets 48 million, 40.5 million pounds per year on average, and all the draft picks they gave up. So far, it's not good, but I do have faith he'll come back. Speaking of which, I have faith that Matthew Stafford comes back, and he is my number 13. For me, I think that he had one bad year, but I do think the Rams will come back this year. If Stafford's healthy, I think as long as you got Cup and Aaron Donald in his team, I think anything's possible. I don't think they'll go anywhere near the Super Bowl again, but I can see him making back to the playoffs potentially, maybe even winning one playoff game. But I just don't see it being, a team that's going to do. But at the end of the day, they got what they came for. They got their ring, and yeah, it's just what I would take that in a heartbeat. I'm sure you'd be as well, Sam. I would take 4 bad years for one good year, which ends in a ring. I really would. Give me if I had a choice now, if I had a genie cut to me and go, you can have a choice of five 9-win seasons, only 2 playoff wins, or give me 4 3-win seasons and a Super Bowl win. I would take that in a heartbeat. Would you as well, Sam?
Do you know what? I do actually agree with you because the the 2019 for me as a Miami Dolphins fan was one of my favorite seasons to watch because I knew we were going to be really bad, but that Ryan Fitzpatrick led team was so
Oh,
fun to watch towards the end of the year. Like even when we missed out on the chance to get Joe Burrow, like it was that team was so great, and the hype going into the draft and everything going, and then obviously the last what was it 2 years of Brian Flores, the there was obviously the defense played well, but there was never really like a feeling of excitement or anything because there was always the controversy surrounding his dislike of Tua and everything like that. Like for me, the next 2 years quite soured as a Dolphins fan, and obviously contended for the playoffs the next 2 years as well. But they weren't nearly as enjoyable as that 2019 season because it was just the hope more than anything that you might be able to get something, rebuild into a great team, with a franchise quarterback, which obviously the Dolphins have not had in a very, very long time. so, so yeah, that I do agree with you there. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, sadly for us, we sort of couldn't tank properly. We did nuke our chances of getting Joe Burrow, but I think what we got right now, too, is absolutely fine. But I do wonder, what if you had Burrow alongside Tyreek Hill and Waddle? That would just be unbelievable.
Well, you're seeing it with the Bengals. You got
Yeah,
Chase and Boyd and Higgins. I
yeah,
mean,
very true.
you're seeing it now. You probably would get the same thing, but also I I actually think that Dolphins offensive line, those two last years of Brian Flores was worse than what Joe Burrow's had. So he might also have been injured the entire time. So you
Mm.
do have to put that in
Yeah,
mind as well.
it's a good point. It's a
So,
good
so
point. It's a good point. Yeah, I mean, Burrow, obviously the most sacked quarterback in postseason of Super Bowl history after that season, but at the same time, I don't think he'd have done much better with that O line we had. If you got Austin Jackson, it's like a death sentence, really. But yeah, no, it's certainly certainly one we'll have to keep an eye on next year is whether he improve. Because if he doesn't if our O line doesn't improve, we really are in trouble. We are going to head to a break. When you come back, we're going to finish off our top 10. See you guys in a bit.